It's hard to jump back into something like this when the last time I was here, I had a pretty sour experience. Hey guys, it's been a while. I was supposed to do a lot of things between the release of this video and my last. I was supposed to review Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which I did until Bandai Namco flagged my content for copyright. And then Toei flagged my content for copyright. And then Funimation flagged my content for copyright. There was also the Mega Man Zero collection, which I was supposed to review, the Final Fantasy VII remake, and the Resident Evil 3 remake that I still have time to review, depending on when I get this one done. Hopefully on time. Probably not. The last, and I mean the last thing I ever expected to review on here was this. A game that has hovered around in my social circles for as long as I can remember, but a game that I never really got around to picking up myself. A game that has been silently breaking records and amassing a major fan base since its inception. This is Animal Crossing: New Horizons. 1 month later. Okay, so I don't usually start here, but with a game as big as this, I think it's important to get this out in the open as soon as possible. So, before New Horizons, I had never played an Animal Crossing game. Not one. And I know that was a point that I made fun of IGN for in my Death Stranding review, but the only difference is here, I'm not gonna make myself look like a fucking idiot. My first ever home console was the Nintendo GameCube, the platform that started the dynasty. And it's not like I was actively avoiding the series or anything, it's just that any time an Animal Crossing dropped, my friends or, my sisters and I were always playing something else. As someone from a low-income family who grew up with a lot of siblings, couch co-op took precedence always. And with the GameCube being the only console with 4 controller ports, and it being the cheapest of that console generation at the time, at 2/3 of the competitor's price for 2 more ports than both of them offered, it was kind of a no-brainer for my mom. The point I'm trying to make here is that this is probably why New Horizons is my first Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing, as I know it to be now, is and always has been a single-player experience. My first and longest time with any console was the Nintendo GameCube, a console that's arguably tailored specifically for local multiplayer. Fast forward to now, and Animal Crossing exists in this weird space where avid gamers have probably played a million titles before they ever touched Animal Crossing, but Animal Crossing's following is unique in that it appeals to people who aren't really into video games at all. Not that much, at least. The mother of my 2 sons loves Animal Crossing, but I doubt she would consider herself a gamer. The grandma whose name I can't remember right now, who logged in 8,500 hours in New Leaf, has probably never heard of Death Stranding or Jedi Fallen Order. And that's where I think this game shines. So, again, as someone who had never experienced an Animal Crossing game before this one, someone who throughout his entire gaming life had been under the impression that a game with no incentive and no consequence is a game not worth playing, I was absolutely befuddled by the amount of content surrounding this game on the internet. The photos on Twitter, people exchanging friend codes, items, recipes, fruits, literally buying entire Switch consoles for this one game to the point of them being impossible to find even now at the time of me recording this video. People reselling Animal Crossing Amiibo and those seemingly pointless cards from like a year ago. You remember those cards? Those Amiibo cards? Yeah, people are selling those for like 3 to 5 times their original value. People are seeking out copies of the older titles just to complete their collection. I'm one of those people, don't judge me. There's even like a makeshift Amazon where people trade items for bells. The hype was and still is very real, and this was before I even picked the game up. And I kept asking myself, what all the hype was about over a game that seemingly had no drive, no purpose. Fast forward to about a week after release, loading up the game and playing it through the first day, this idea became crystal clear to me. Animal Crossing has cornered the market in a way that rivals other open world games in that there's no real consequence, no risk, no agenda, and they somehow made it work. Now, we all know that it's technically a social simulator, right? For the sake of argument, let's just humor me here, let's call it an open world game, whatever. Open world in the sense that freedom is like a major theme in the game. Now look at other open world games like Death Stranding or Skyrim. In Death Stranding, depending on where you are in the story, you technically don't ever have to actually keep going, but the threat of BTs and mules is always lurking. In Skyrim, you don't ever have to find the Elder Scroll or fight Alduin. You could become a vampire, start a family, join the fucking Bard's College, I don't know. But the threat of Alduin is ever present. In Animal Crossing, once you get past the first day or two, and some might even argue that even on the first day, you don't actually have to do anything? Which brings me to my next point. When does a game where you don't have to do anything end? It doesn't. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Animal Crossing, from what I understand, has always been a game that's meant to be played over the course of weeks, months, years even. So runtime is technically forever, and that's why there have been only 5 mainline titles in the past 2 decades, not including things like Amiibo Festival and like Pocket Camp and stuff like that. Sure, there are objectives in the beginning hours and days, and there is a credits scene, but what lies beyond is not what I would consider a post-game like in other titles, considering that after those credits is when you unlock the full experience and take full advantage of the game's many nuances and mechanics. So does the game end? No, not really. The game has an internal clock and the seasons change in-game just like they do in real life. There are daily tasks to complete and seasonal events to partake in, and with the promise of DLC and constant updates, this really is a game you sign up to be involved with for the long haul. There are objectives that you complete until you reach a credit scene, but everything you do up until then is just the beginning, after which the game really opens up. So who is this game for? The thumbnail isn't clickbait, by the way. That's honestly how I feel about this game. It is a non-game for the non-gamer. Let me explain. It's for people who like a slow and steady experience. It's for people who probably have an hour or two to spare for a video game each day. It's for people who like repetition and getting into what many gamers call the loop. The gameplay loop is simply what you do every day in a video game. That's it. That's all it is. My loop, for example, consists of, mainly finding my money hole, the golden hole where the money is, replanting that to get a money tree, finding the money rock on my island, digging up any fossils, watering my flowers, and logging onto my Nook Miles account. I'll get to that later. Now, if you've never played this game, none of that made any sense to you, but if you have, then you're familiar with at least some of these concepts. I got into the loop pretty quickly and got used to the process, so doing all of the aforementioned things and then some takes me less than an hour sometimes, which is nice, especially for someone like myself who plays various titles and has to jump back and forth for the sake of my content. Anyway, let's talk about... Graphically, this game is fantastic. This may be my first Animal Crossing, but I think it's no contest when I say that this is the best Animal Crossing has ever looked and felt. Looking back at previous titles, I'm actually glad this is my first one, because this game makes the original Animal Crossing look like computer vomit. The childlike, cartoony style of your character and villager companions, alongside the surprisingly realistic textures and behaviors of bugs, fish, and fossils, is a little bit jarring at first. But you come to appreciate the attention to detail and the juxtaposition between the two styles once you play the game more. Seriously, I mean it, this game looks incredible for what it is. Animal Crossing has no business looking and sounding as good as it does in this game. Cicada bugs actually sound like real, like they're out your window, especially if you play with a headset on. The shit sounds like it's outside, like it's crazy. Waves hitting rocks sound like the actual ocean. Your footsteps sounds are very distinct depending on like what surface you're running on top of. It's insane. As someone who is, somewhat of an audio engineer, a producer, and I make music, I have a very deep appreciation for sound design. I know that doesn't have anything to do with graphics, but I just thought I would mention it because I really appreciate minor stuff like that. Critterpedia is a fantastic little bonus where you can view these beautifully rendered animals as well. The museum and all of its sections are gorgeous and become more beautiful still as you add more fish, bugs, and fossils to its various exhibits. Gathering all these things and crafting various materials and furniture and set pieces for your island are at the core of this game's appeal. It's not so much about having the best looking island or the most things or the biggest house. It's about the process. The journey. A journey that I feel some people cut corners on, effectively breaking the game and diminishing its value and bastardizing the experience. I know those are pretty big words, so don't take them to heart if you're one of these people, okay? Because at the end of the day, you paid $60 for this game. I didn't buy the game for you. I can't tell you how to play it. You play a game you paid for however you want. That's always been my philosophy, for lack of a better word. But don't come on here with your opinions if you play dishonestly, okay? You can play however you want, but there is a way to play dishonestly, and don't fuck with me on this, okay? You know what the fuck I'm talking about. First of all, the game is not designed to be beat in a week. It's not. Okay, it's not. There are things that need to happen in a specific order that literally take longer than a week to do. All jokes aside, if you're time skipping, right, don't recommend this game to someone who sees your island fully furnished and decorated and then, you know, not tell them that you time skipped for a week to literally break the game without first mentioning that this is not how the game is designed to be played. Don't even give your opinion on it. If you have a slew of followers and subscribers that just give you everything, that have been sending you shit through, you know, the Nook mail and fucking giving you items and coming to your island and dropping bags of fucking money, don't give your opinion on this game because you're not actually playing. If you're one of these people with a giant following and a big platform, and you have a bunch of people sending you shit in a game like Animal Crossing and doing shit for you, basically, you're not actually even playing the game. Your opinion is fucking invalid. Also, I just realized that, like, no grown man should be this passionate about Animal Crossing. Everybody gets one, though, right? Mierda, coño, este jugo de chinola está buenísimo. But as I previously mentioned, there's no pressure to do anything anyway. So when it comes to actual gameplay, it's nice to know that I can log into Animal Crossing for an hour and be satisfied with what I've done, move on to another title, and not touch Animal Crossing again for the rest of the day if I don't want to. And know that I didn't miss out on any of its various daily perks, which is another fascinating thing about Animal Crossing. It's unlike any other game in that it makes relatively arbitrary stuff into things you look forward to on a daily basis. Based on my gaming history, nothing about watering plants or catching bugs in a video game should excite me. But the possibility of crossbreeding rare flowers and completing my museum is exciting, because Animal Crossing makes it exciting. And the fact that you can get, you know, all these daily tasks done in less than an hour most of the time makes this the perfect game to play in small doses. Sometimes, oh boy. Okay, you guys aren't gonna like me after this, but sometimes, man, even an hour is too long. Now, this is probably going to be the longest section because this is where I am most critical of the game. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Because remember, kids, you can be critical of something and still like it. So take it with a grain of salt when I say that in a game like Animal Crossing, controls are nothing to write home about in the first place. It's no Devil May Cry. There's no strings or button combinations. You know, it's just when they work, and when they don't, it kind of sucks. I swear, this game needs crosshairs or something, because sometimes I'll be standing right over an item, and my character will decide to pick a flower in my perfectly organized flower bed and completely ruin my aesthetic! There's also no way of gauging the distance between yourself and a floating present, because the slingshot either fires right over it or misses it completely. So I've just defaulted to standing right under it and flinging a rock at it. This technique has somehow never failed me, not once. Camera controls are also frustrating because you have 3 options, one of which isn't even available while moving, and what makes it worse is that inside your house, you have complete control of the camera, with a full 360 view of everything. So in your house, where it's literally just fake stuff, furniture, and just pieces that aren't meant to be touched or messed with or picked up, you have complete control of the camera. Resource management is a nightmare because you have to manually organize your inventory every single time, but that's more of a personal issue I have and not so much an oversight in the game. I just like things in their place. A huge oversight, however, is how sometimes you go to your tool wheel and think, oh, the vaulting pole and the ladder are right next to each other. Okay, cool, I know this. For next time I'm using the vaulting pole and then need the ladder, I could just hit left on the D-pad and it'll take me to my ladder. But then you press left on the D-pad and change the tool you're holding, but it's not in the order they appear on the tool wheel, it's in the order they appear in your inventory. This grows increasingly aggravating. Okay, this shouldn't bother me. This should not bother me as much as it does, okay? But I'm passionate about this shit, alright? Leave me alone. Anyone looking at the tool wheel would just click left or right depending on what tool they need, whatever's the next tool in the wheel, only to be met with like a watering can as the balloon floats right over the ocean and that present is never to be claimed. After a month of playing this game day in and day out, the serene experience that Animal Crossing New Horizons has to offer becomes painstakingly slow, and there needs to be some kind of option to skip dialogue you've seen over and over and over and over. I don't need to watch Orville ask me the same 4 questions before I set out to another island. I know for a fact that at least one of them is like required just to like trigger the internet connection, so like I'm not an idiot. But I mean, just all that shit to get to a mystery island that I've been to a million times, like, can we just fucking speed it up? Like, come on. And I don't need to see the same animation every single time I give Blathers a donation. The Nook stop? Oh my fucking god! It takes forever to do anything on that fucking thing. Animal Crossing. The box outside of Nook's Cranny, where you drop off items you want to sell after closing time and then receive your bells via direct deposit the next day, is fucking genius. It's genius! It's a much faster and relatively painless method compared to the monotony of having to watch the same cutscene and read the same text over and over. Why doesn't the Nook's Cranny Dropbox exist for the museum? Why can't I place 2 staircases directly next to each other as soon as I have the option to change stuff? Why do I have to wait until I can terraform to make specific changes? Why are suspension bridges not a thing when I can literally jump the actual distance on my own 2 feet? Controls definitely have a part to play in the lack of options in this game. Denominations of bells aren't automatically stacked like crafting items and fruits. Instead, I have to sit there doing this shit for 45 seconds. If I could specify where I want bridges and inclines to the same degree as my house, using literally the same button scheme, that would be so much less frustrating. If I could control the camera 360 degrees the same way I can at home, at my museum, you know, the place you would want to have full control of the camera. Yeah, you know, that would really add to the immersion in a game where this is literally the only place, probably, where things are 90% realistically animated. Look, this game does some things really well in some areas that for some reason it just chooses not to do in others. One thing it does really well, though, is... This is probably a weird place to put this, especially after complaining about the game for what seemed like forever. But I really like the story here. It's simple and inconsequential, to be honest. You're a villager on a desert island getaway, catching, digging, fishing, talking, and chopping your way up the socio-political ladder of the island, trying your best to build a bustling community. The game does a fantastic job of communicating this in really simple terms, but not so childlike that it's insulting to older players. In a game like Animal Crossing, the story doesn't even really matter, but it's nice to know they took the time to at least write something competent, despite how minimal a lot of these story beats seem in comparison to your own personal goals in the game. They're meaningful enough to get a genuine feeling of satisfaction out of me once I finally saw those credits roll. It's a cute story with a cute ending and even cuter possibilities beyond that. So what's the verdict here? This is the hardest section to write in a game like this, to be honest. So I kind of just like didn't write it. I think I'm gonna wing it and go off top. You know, especially being my first one in this long-standing franchise. Mostly because I don't really know who not to recommend this game to. If you're like a hardcore gamer and you're streaming every day and you're in and out of, you know, matches or whatever, Animal Crossing New Horizons might be the breath of fresh air you need. If you're a casual gamer and, you know, you play video games 2, maybe 3 times a week, Animal Crossing might provide the consistency you need to maybe get into a daily groove. If you've never picked up a video game in your entire life, I'd go as far as to say that Animal Crossing New Horizons is definitely a system seller. I would, like, if I had never touched a video game ever in my entire life, I'd buy a whole brand new Switch just for this game. If I didn't do it for Zelda or Mario, and if those games do not appeal to me, Animal Crossing is 100% the game that will. It's an easy enough experience with a huge window for newcomers. You know, it's easy to learn, it's easy to play, and you can do everything at your own pace. There's no rush. You know, this really is a fantastic game. Honestly, I recommend it. So thanks, Nintendo. Thanks for making sure I never have to touch Jedi Fallen Order ever again.